the day my world shattered in silence. The church smelled of lilies and candle wax. Stained glass spilled jeweled light across the aisle. Crimson and sapphire streaming over the polished floor. The organ hummed softly like a heartbeat beneath everything. I stood there at the altar in a dress that shimmered like breath, my fingers laced through Ryan's. My pulse was a steady drum, but it wasn't fear, it was certainty. This was the moment little girls dream about, and women rehearse in secret. My father sat in the front pew, his chin trembling with pride. My mother wept quietly, clutching the handkerchief she'd carried at her own wedding. I had imagined this scene for years, the way Ryan's voice would sound when he promised forever. The priest smiled between us, voice warm and deliberate. His words blurred into music, to love and to cherish in sickness and in health. And then he turned to Ryan. Do you take this woman? That's when it happened. Ryan's fingers twitched in mine. His grip turned clammy, hesitant. His throat bobbed as he leaned closer, so close that the guests probably thought he was whispering something tender. I even smiled, expecting the words, I love you. But his breath trembled against my ear. I can't do this, he whispered. At first I thought I'd misheard him. My smile froze polite, confused. Then he said it again, clearer, heavier. I can't marry you, Pamela. I'm sorry, but Hannah's here. The name dropped into my chest like a stone through glass. Hannah, his ex. The passionate mistake. The one he swore was ancient history. He went on, his voice shaking with some feverish conviction. She's just more. More passion, more life, more everything. I can't explain it. The rest dissolved into the air between us. The colors in the church bled out of the world. The reds and blues from the glass windows turned white and harsh. I heard the faintest crack, maybe from my heart, maybe from reality. I looked at him. Really looked. His pupils were wide with panic, his jaw trembling. I had loved this face. I had traced its angles 100 times, memorized every line. Now it looked foreign, like I was staring at an impersonator wearing Ryan's skin. For a long second, everything was suspended. The priest's lips parted, but no sound came out. The guests fidgeted in their seats, sensing the rupture before understanding it. My first instinct wasn't to cry. It wasn't even to shout. It was a deep, freezing stillness, like my soul had been packed in ice to stop it from bleeding. I heard my own voice before I even decided to speak. Calm, controlled. Father, I said quietly, interrupting his confused stammer. May I? He blinked startled, then handed me the microphone. Ryan's eyes darted to mine, desperate pleading. Pamela, please don't. But I'd already stepped forward. My heels clicked softly against the marble floor as I turned to face the sea of guests, friends, family, co-workers. Every pair of eyes was a reflection of disbelief. I'm sorry to inform you all, I said, my voice steady enough to echo. The wedding is canceled. A gasp rippled through the room. I continued, unflinching. It seems the groom has had a change of heart, but please enjoy the reception. The food and wine are already paid for. There was a brief silence, then a murmur. Someone sobbed. Someone else whispered, Oh my God. I handed the microphone back to the priest. My fingers were trembling now, but I kept my chin high. Ryan called my name as I turned away, but I didn't look back. The sound of the church doors creaking open cut through the noise like a blade. Sunlight spilled across the aisle. I walked straight through it, through the dust-filled air, through the stairs, through the wreckage of a life I'd built in my mind. Outside, the sky was blindingly blue, ordinary, cruel. The doors closed behind me, muffling the chaos I'd left inside, the gasps, the whispers, his mother crying. I could still hear his voice echoing in my head. She's just more. I stood on the church steps, the lace of my veil trembling in the wind. A photographer across the street lifted his camera instinctively. Maybe thinking this was still part of the wedding, I turned my face away. For a long moment, I just breathed. In, out, in, out. No tears, not yet. Then I walked down those steps one at a time, careful, deliberate, as if each step was a line dividing who I used to be from who I would have to become. Behind me, the bells began to ring for someone else's wedding, echoing faintly over the city. And all I could think was, he wanted more. I didn't cry that day. I didn't scream, didn't run, didn't demand an explanation. I simply walked away, and somehow that calm was more terrifying than any outburst could have been. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone was already vibrating nonstop. My mother, his mother, bridesmaids, journalists even. The wedding had become a living headline. Runaway groom leaves bride at the altar. I turned the phone off and booked a taxi to the airport. My suitcase was still packed, silk dresses, heels, sunscreen, everything meant for our honeymoon. 2 tickets to paradise now, just one. The airport was fluorescent loud and mercifully indifferent. People rushing, children crying, luggage wheels rattling over the tiles. It was life messy and moving on, and I envied it. When the attendant looked at my ticket, her smile was automatic. Congratulations, Mrs. Davis' honeymoon to Bali. How exciting is your husband joining you later? Her words hit like static against glass. No, I said softly. It's just me. The smile faltered her pity, quick but awkward. I'm so sorry. Don't be, I replied. It's a long story. I didn't sleep on the 14-hour flight. I stared out the window as clouds drifted past like silent witnesses. My reflection in the glass looked composed, hair neat, posture perfect, but my eyes, they were empty. When I landed in Bali, the air was thick with salt and frangipani. Paradise smelled like irony. The resort staff greeted me with garlands, bowing and smiling. Welcome, Mrs. Davis, one said brightly. Congratulations on your marriage. My throat tightened. I nodded wordlessly. The suite was breathtaking. White linens, rose petals on the bed, a bottle of champagne chilling beside a card that read, Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Davis. I swept the petals to the floor with one hand. The sound of them falling was absurdly loud in the silence. I opened the champagne not to celebrate, but because it was there. The cork hit the ceiling, bounced off, rolled under the table. I drank straight from the bottle until the bubbles burned my throat. That first night, I lay across the giant bed meant for two, staring at the ceiling fan, turning lazy circles above me. The hum filled the room like white noise. I whispered his words into the dark. She's just more. More what? More reckless, more alive, more fun. I thought of every moment Ryan and I had built together, the quiet breakfast, the rain-soaked grocery runs, the plans scribbled on napkins. Was that less? Was I less? The next morning, I walked the beach alone. The water was impossibly blue, the kind of color people post online with captions about healing. My feet sank into the sand, the waves kissed my ankles, and still I felt nothing. I visited every place we'd planned to go together. The temple overlooking the cliffs, the night market, glowing with lanterns, the waterfall hidden in the jungle. I went through the motions like an actor performing for an audience that no longer existed. Everywhere I turned, people were in pairs, laughing, kissing, arguing, existing. I watched them like a ghost watching the living. My phone stayed silent. I didn't open it for days. When I finally connected to Wi-Fi, it lit up with notifications, dozens of messages. From my parents, from his parents, from friends, from Ryan himself. Ryan. Please, Pamela. I didn't mean for it to happen that way. I panicked. I'm sorry, Ryan. You don't understand. She showed up. I thought I was over her. I just lost control. Ryan. Please call me. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I blocked his number. It felt both cowardly and powerful, like slamming a door that should have been closed long ago. I stayed in Bali 2 weeks. I swam in turquoise water until my fingers wrinkled. I ate candlelit dinners alone. I watched sunsets so beautiful they should have healed me, but they didn't. The pain was there just frozen beneath the surface, and I wasn't ready to thaw it yet. I wasn't ready to feel anything. When I boarded the plane home, I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just whispered to myself as the engines roared and the island shrank beneath me. He wanted more. Let him drown in it. The silence of my apartment hit harder than the church bells ever did. I opened the door, expecting what exactly? An apology letter, a box of regret tied in ribbon. Instead, I found chaos. Drawers half open, clothes thrown in piles. Our framed photo from a hiking trip face down on the floor, its glass cracked straight through the middle, right between our smiles. That single fracture said everything. He'd come back after the disaster, packed in a rush, and left again. I pictured him tossing his shirts into a bag while her car waited outside. The thought should have broken me. Instead, it left me strangely cold. There's something liberating about devastation. It burns everything that can't survive the fire. I started cleaning, methodically, like surgery. I boxed up his books, his shaving kit, his stupid mug that said, World's Best Fiancé. Each item went into a cardboard coffin. No tears, no hesitation. By midnight, the apartment was spotless, sterile, too quiet. I poured a glass of water and sat on the floor beside the cracked photo frame. The reflection in the broken glass looked like two versions of me, one still standing at the altar and one who had already walked away. That night I dreamed of the church again, only this time it was empty. The organ played itself, and there was no groom, just my own footsteps echoing off the walls. When I woke up, the dream felt like a warning. This isn't where your story ends. The next morning, I called the building manager and gave notice. I couldn't live in a mausoleum. I moved into a small, clean corporate apartment that smelled faintly of paint and possibility. Fresh start, new walls, no ghosts. A few days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. "Hello, you can't just ghost me," the voice hissed. It was Ryan. For a heartbeat, I almost didn't recognize him, the trembling edge in his tone, like guilt mixed with fear. "I needed time," I said flatly. "Time," he snapped. "You humiliated me, Pamela, in front of everyone." My laugh was soft, sharp, cruel. "You humiliated yourself. I just refused to join in." He went silent for a moment, breathing raggedly. Then his voice broke. "It wasn't supposed to happen that way. I saw Hannah and God. It was like everything I thought I wanted came rushing back." I closed my eyes. "You made your choice clear, Ryan. It wasn't a choice," he cried. It was a feeling. "You and I were calm, safe. But she makes me feel alive." Alive. That word again. Like stability was death and chaos was oxygen. I felt something shift in me then, a hardening. "You don't want to feel alive, Ryan. You want to feel addicted," I said quietly. "And that's not love. It's a habit." He stammered, desperate. "Please, Pamela, don't do this. I already did." I hung up, blocked the number. Then I set the phone down and realized my hand wasn't shaking, not even a little. That was the first sign I was coming back to life on my own terms. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt in silence. I went to work early, stayed late. My coworkers whispered behind my back, at first pity disguised as curiosity. I ignored them. I joined a gym. The first time I hit the treadmill, I could almost feel the anger leave through the soles of my shoes. Anger burns calories. Pain builds muscle. There's poetry in that. I found small comforts, morning coffee on my balcony, podcasts about resilience, the smell of clean laundry. Every ritual was a quiet rebellion against the woman who stood frozen at the altar. One evening, as I unpacked the last of my boxes, the landline rang again. This time, it wasn't him, it was his mother. "Pamela," she said, voice sharp but trembling, "you've made your point. He's sorry. He's been miserable." I almost smiled. "So have I. Difference is, I didn't cause mine." "You can't just throw love away like this." "Love," I said softly. "If this is love, I'll take peace instead." She sputtered, but I was already done. "I wish you both healing, Mrs. Davis," I said, then hung up. That night I slept for the first time in weeks. No dreams, no noise, just quiet. And in that quiet, I realized something beautiful. My world hadn't ended at that altar. It had started there. It had been 5 months since the altar. 5 months of muted mornings, gym playlists, long hours at work, and a peace so still it almost frightened me. My therapist once said, healing doesn't happen in a straight line, it's a spiral. You circle the pain, come close, pull away, then return from a higher place. She was right. Some mornings I woke up fine. Others I woke up remembering the weight of his hand in mine. But I was no longer haunted, just aware. Then one evening, as the city hummed outside my window, my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in forever, Sarah Bennett. Sarah was a mutual friend, one of those people who lived for gossip, but wrapped it in concern. I almost ignored the call, but curiosity won. "Pamela," she gasped the second I picked up. "Oh my God, you actually answered." "Hey, Sarah," I said evenly. "It's been a while. I know. Listen, I probably shouldn't be calling, but you deserve to know before it becomes, well, news." That got my attention. "Know what?" She hesitated, drawing out the moment like a suspense scene. "It's Ryan and Hannah." I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. She filled the silence the way people always do when they crave reaction. "So after, the wedding that wasn't, they went ahead and had this tacky courthouse wedding. No family, no guests, just 2 random witnesses from the street. It was pathetic. My voice was calm. I see." Sarah continued, energized by my restraint. "Anyway, it fell apart fast. He lost his job a month later. Apparently he's got an issue with authorities, surprise, surprise, and then he just stopped trying. He's been living off her credit cards, like literally sponging off her." I leaned against the window frame, city lights painting my reflection in gold. "I figured something like that might happen," I murmured. Oh, that's not even the worst part, she said, her tone dropping conspiratorially. He's turned into a complete nightmare, controlling Moody shouting at her in public. My friend Maya saw them at a bar. He was yelling at Hannah because she looked at a waiter too long. A pause, and she just took it, like she was afraid of him. My heart didn't twist. It didn't even flinch. It just felt still. I should have felt vindicated, but instead I felt old, tired, done. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. For her. Sarah's voice sharpened. You're sorry for her, Pamela? She stole your fiancé. She didn't steal him, I said quietly. He wasn't mine if he could be taken. That shut her up for a second. Then she dropped the final blow, the one she'd been saving. And get this, he was cheating on her. The whole time, with some girl he met at the gym. There was satisfaction in her tone, as if this was justice and I should be celebrating. I didn't. So, I said after a long silence, he finally found his more. More chaos, more lies, more damage. Sarah gave a small, awkward laugh. Guess karma came fast, huh? Karma's not mine to serve, I said. I stopped waiting for it a long time ago. Another pause. Then softly, you really don't care, do you? I smiled faintly, watching headlights move across the wall. Caring is what got me here. I'm done with that. She sighed. You've changed. Good. After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood on my balcony. The city buzzed below strangers, laughing. Cars weaving lives colliding in motion. I thought about Hannah crying. In some apartment she couldn't afford. Ryan breaking another promise, both of them trapped in the same fire they'd started. And for the first time, I understood what real peace felt like. It wasn't happiness. It was absence, the absence of noise, of chaos, of caring about what burned behind me. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want closure. I just wanted quiet. And that's exactly what I had. The next morning, I deleted Sarah's number, because the past doesn't deserve an audience. Peace is fragile. It can shatter with one vibration from your phone. It started on a Wednesday night. I'd just finished cooking something simple, roasted vegetables and tea, and was halfway through a book when the screen lit up. Unknown number. 10:14 p.m. I made the biggest mistake of my life. He was a monster. You were my peace. Please, can we just talk? I stared at the message until the words blurred into static. There was no name, but there didn't need to be one. I knew that syntax by heart. I didn't reply. I didn't even feel anger. It was like hearing the echo of a song I'd already forgotten the tune to. Delete. Block. 2 days later, another number. 2:31 p.m. Remember our trip to the mountains? That was real. What we had was real. Liam, no. Not Liam. Ryan. I still slip sometimes when I remember the old version of the story. Ryan was a fantasy. A stupid fantasy. I see that now. It was clever, almost surgical targeting the memory that used to undo me. That weekend in the cabin had been our best snow, outside firelight on his face, laughter muffled under blankets. Now the memory was hollow, like film with no sound. Delete, block. A week passed. Silence returned. Then the tone shifted. Unknown number, 11:07 p.m. So you're just going to ignore me after everything. I guess you never really loved me either. You're just as cold as he said you were. I exhaled slow and steady. There it was, the pivot from apology to accusation. When begging doesn't work, blame becomes the language of regret. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry for what it cost her. I didn't block this one right away. I just stared at the message, the screen's light reflecting on my glass of water. Then a tiny, uninvited smile curved my lips. Delete. That night I slept well. But ghosts don't rest easily. 3 days later, my phone rang again. This time her mother. Pamela came, the voice sharp with righteousness, trembling with nerves. You can't just abandon her now. After what that man did to her, she's broken. You have to forgive her. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Patricia, I said softly, I understand you're hurting for your daughter, but she ended our friendship, not me. She's learned her lesson, Patricia snapped. A real woman doesn't turn her back on another when she's down. That stung, but not the way she intended. It reminded me of every time I'd been told to be softer, quieter, forgiving to the point of self-destruction. I took a slow breath and let my tone turn calm and firm like glass that doesn't bend. I'm sorry you're seeing her in pain, I said, but she built that pain with her choices. It's not my job to fix what she broke. You can't mean that, Patricia whispered. I do, and this will be the last time we speak. Click. I blocked the number before she could call back. For a while, I stood there, phone in hand, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. The woman looking back at me wasn't the trembling bride from the altar. She was still measured steady. I realized something profound. Then peace isn't found in forgiveness or revenge. It's found in indifference. When their words no longer sting, when their names no longer echo, when your silence becomes heavier than their noise, that's freedom. That night, I turned off my phone, lit a candle, and wrote in my journal. They wanted my forgiveness, but what they really wanted was my attention, and I owe them neither. Then I blew out the candle, and for the first time in a year, my sleep was dreamless. A year passed before I even realized it had. Time didn't heal everything, it just made the wounds less noisy. The ghost calls stopped. The whispers faded. And one morning I woke up and noticed something I hadn't felt in a long time: light. It was streaming through my apartment window, catching on the rim of my coffee mug, warm and simple. I had survived the noise, and in the quiet that followed, I began to rebuild. Work became my sanctuary first. I wasn't hiding behind my career, I was rediscovering my worth in it. Each project, each presentation, each solved problem reminded me that competence is its own form of beauty. My coworkers started asking for my opinion more. My boss mentioned promotion in passing. It didn't thrill me, but it anchored me. Then came the gym. At first, I went to exhaust my body so my mind would stop spinning. But soon I began to enjoy it, the rhythm of movement, the music in my ears, the silence afterward. Every drop of sweat felt like anger leaving my skin. Every rep rebuilt a small piece of me that had been shattered at that altar. I stopped checking social media altogether. No photos of him, no rumors, no reminders. When people mentioned his name in passing, I no longer flinched. It became just another sound in the air. And somewhere between late nights at work and early morning jogs, I met Michael Bennett. He was an architect we hired for a new design project, a man whose calm felt earned, not practiced. He laughed easily, but there was substance behind his eyes. He noticed small things: when I changed my perfume, when I looked tired but pretended not to be. The first time he asked me out for coffee, I almost said no. Habit, maybe. Fear. But something in his tone, gentle, patient, made it easy to say yes. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into Sunday walks. And for once, there were no fireworks, no dizzying highs or shattering lows, just warmth. Steady, honest warmth. One night, as we walked along the riverside, he asked softly, "Were you ever married?" The question caught me off guard. The truth was tangled in silence for a moment. "No," I said finally, my voice steady. "Almost." He nodded, not pushing for details. "Almost can be harder than yes or no." "That's true," I murmured. Then he smiled gently. "But almost means there's still room for something better." That stayed with me. For the first time, I felt seen not for my history, but for who I was despite it. Weeks turned into months. The winter air softened. My therapist noticed the shift before I did. "You're not talking about him anymore," she said with a small smile. "I guess I ran out of things to say," I replied. My apartment looked different now, bright, uncluttered, full of small tokens of a life I chose. Plants that didn't die, artwork. I'd bought for myself a record player that filled the evenings with soft jazz instead of silence. One night, while washing dishes, I caught my reflection in the kitchen window. For a split second, I didn't recognize myself. There was no exhaustion in my face, no ache behind my eyes, just calm. That's when I realized healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without pain. The next morning, Michael left a small envelope on my desk. Inside was a hand-drawn sketch of a house. Nothing grand, just a quiet place near the woods with big windows and a wraparound porch. Underneath it, he'd written, "When we're ready to build." I smiled, tracing the lines of the drawing with my thumb. It didn't feel like a proposal. It felt like a promise, steady, patient, real. That evening, as I watched the sunset spill through the blinds, I whispered to myself, "I no longer dream of closure, I live it." It happened on a Friday night. The kind of night that glows: soft jazz, champagne flutes, clinking laughter, bouncing off white walls and polished floors. Michael had invited me to an art exhibition his firm had helped design. It was a minimalist space, all curved glass and light wood, the kind of place where the air felt curated. He stood beside me, one hand at the small of my back, explaining how the lighting was meant to make the paintings breathe. I wasn't really listening. I was just happy. Quietly, fully, unpretentiously happy. It's strange how happiness sneaks up on you. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It just sits beside you one day and asks, "Can I stay?" We wandered between canvases, moody blues, shimmering golds, something abstract that looked like a storm breaking open. I stopped before one of them and tilted my head. "It feels like drowning and healing at the same time," I murmured. Michael smiled. "That's how I felt when I met you." Before I could reply, I felt it, that prickling at the back of my neck, the sense of being watched. I turned, and there he was, Ryan. He looked smaller somehow, as if the months had scraped pieces off him. The confident smirk he used to wear had collapsed into something brittle. His suit was wrinkled, his tie too tight. His eyes, once sharp with arrogance, were tired and hollow. For a moment the world narrowed just like it had in the church, only this time I wasn't the one trembling. He walked toward me, slowly rehearsed smile, faltering with every step. "Pamela," he said, his voice softer than I remembered. "Wow. You look alive," I finished for him. He blinked, unsure whether I was mocking or honest. I didn't clarify. Michael turned slightly, his presence steady, protective, but never possessive. I could feel his warmth even without looking at him. Ryan exhaled shakily. "You look incredible. Really. I've thought about reaching out." "You did," I said evenly. "Several times." He flinched. "Yeah, I just didn't know what to say that wouldn't sound stupid. Maybe because there isn't anything that would sound right," I said. He swallowed hard, glancing down, then back up. "I made a mess of everything. Hannah, she's gone. Took off 2 months ago. Said she needed to find herself. Turns out what she found was someone else's husband." I said nothing. The silence between us felt surgical, precise, cutting clean. "I think about that day, he continued, at the altar. What I said to you, I was God. I was so wrong. I thought passion meant chaos and stability meant boredom. Turns out chaos just burns until there's nothing left." He gave a small, broken laugh. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw it away." Once those words would have gutted me, but now they barely grazed the surface. I studied him the way one studies an old photograph, familiar but no longer real. "That feels like a lifetime ago," I said quietly. He searched my face, hoping for softness, forgiveness, anything to grab onto. "Pamela is there. Any chance?" Before I could answer, Michael returned from the bar with 2 glasses of champagne. His hand brushed my arm as he passed me one. "Hey, sweetheart," he said casually, then turned with his usual easy warmth. "Oh, hi there. I'm Michael." Ryan's expression faltered. "I'm, Ryan. Nice to meet you," Michael said, genuinely polite. Then to me, "Did you see the installation in the next room, the one with the mirrors?" "I did," I said, smiling up at him. It reminded me of something I used to be. Ryan looked between us, at Michael's hand resting lightly at my waist, at my smile, at the calm radiating from the space we shared. He understood in that instant that the door was not just closed. It had been bricked over, painted, and forgotten. "I see," he murmured, his voice cracking. "You look happy." "I am," I said simply. He nodded once, defeated ghostly, and stepped back. "I'm glad. Really." I believed him, or maybe I just didn't care enough to doubt it. As he walked away, the crowd swallowed him up. The jazz returned. The laughter rose. And just like that, the man who once defined my world became background noise in someone else's story. Michael looked at me curiously. "Old friend." I took a sip of champagne, the bubbles sharp and clean on my tongue. "Once upon a time." He smiled, resting his forehead against mine. "Once upon a time is a terrible place to live." "Exactly," I whispered. And when I looked up again, Ryan was gone, like smoke dissolving under the gallery lights. After that night, something in me finally settled. Not the way ashes settle after a fire, more like soil after a long storm, ready to grow things again. Michael and I left the gallery hand in hand, the city lights stretching in ripples across the windshield as we drove. The radio hummed softly. He didn't ask about Ryan again, and I didn't offer. Some stories don't deserve retelling. We stopped at a small cafe that stayed open late. I remember the warmth of the cup between my palms, the quiet hum of conversation, and the reflection of our faces in the window. His calm and kind mind, peaceful. That word used to sound boring to me. Now it felt sacred. When I got home that night, I slipped off my heels, set my phone on silent, and stood by the window. The city moved below like a living thing, strangers in motion, headlights pulsing like veins of light. For the first time in years, I felt no pull toward the past. No ghosts, No what ifs, just now. And now was enough. A week later, a package arrived, no return address. Inside was a small envelope, and within it, a ring. The ring. The one he'd proposed to me with. There was no note, just that empty circle of metal gleaming in its box. I stared at it for a long time. Once that ring had been a promise, now it was just a loop, a perfect symbol of nothingness. A closed shape with no exit, no meaning. I walked to the balcony, held it in my palm one last time, and whispered, "I hope you find what you're still looking for." Then I dropped it. It fell silently swallowed by the night. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't even feel relieved. I just felt free. That weekend, Michael took me hiking up a trail that overlooked the city. The air smelled of pine and earth. When we reached the summit, the view stretched forever. He turned to me, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. "You look different up here," he said. "How so lighter? Like the air suits you." I smiled. Maybe it does. We sat in silence for a while, our fingers intertwined. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one in the church, the one staring at a cracked photo, the one who measured her worth by someone else's love. She was gone, and I didn't mourn her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting everything gold, I realized something. He wanted more, and I became more without him. Because more isn't about passion or chaos or the people who promise the world and hand you ashes. More is what happens when you rebuild yourself piece by steady piece until the reflection staring back at you no longer needs anyone to define it. Later that evening, as Michael drove us home, I looked out at the twinkling skyline and smiled, a quiet, genuine smile that belonged entirely to me. For the first time in years, the story felt finished. Not because someone got punished, not because I found a new love, but because I found myself. And that was enough. "He wanted more," I whispered, as the city lights blurred